make it. So we just have to start creating an adjustment layers. Let's go to curves. As I said before, you pretty much know how Dutch and Bend work if you watched my previous lesson, but I'm going to repeat this once again so you're going to understand everything very clear. So I'm choosing the curve adjustment layer. And as you can see, when I pull it up, the image becoming brighten, so it will be our Dutch. And when I pull down, the image become darken, so that will be our Bern. And right now you have this actually explained how does it works. And I'm going to create at first the Bern adjustment layer. So I'm going to pull down the lights. And really the great thing about the curve adjustment layers and why this is a method of my choice, as you can see, I pull down the darkness to the specific level. So I cannot go more than this, I cannot go darker than this, but I always block at some point. So it's really difficult to do a mistake. And even though if it will be too strong, you can always change opacity over here. And also you can open your curve adjustment layer and make it stronger or not that strong. It depends on what are you looking for. So it gives you really amazing control on the image, and it's really difficult to do a mistake, as I said. So that will be my Dutch layer. I'm sorry, Bern layer, of course, because we're going into the darkness. I'm going to call this Bern. And right now this layer is visible, but of course I want to make this invisible, because I'm going to paint on this layer a bit later. So I inverted this, that's my Bern layer, and when I'm going to choose the brush with the white color, what is happening when I paint on this, as you can see, the image becoming dark. And of course that's not the effect I want to show you, but just that's how it works. So that's our Bern layer. Right now I'm going to open another curve adjustment layer, and now it will be opposite, it will be Dutch layer. So I'm going to pull the curve adjustment layers a bit up, something like this. And once again, we can change this anytime if it will be too much or not enough. So it's actually very simple. As you can see, the point about this image, it doesn't have to be so strong. Maybe I can pull this a bit lower, because it depends on the nature of our image. If the image has more color, if the image is more, I would say, crunchy, grunge, if you have more micro transitions, you can pull your curve a bit higher or lower. And if it's not really if you don't have so many micro transitions, it doesn't have to be so strong. So that's the only thing that curve adjustment layers can give you. So that will be Dutch. And I'm going to invert this layer once again. And how does it work? Have a look. I'm painting with the white color to brighten up the image. Of course, that's not the effect I'm looking for. So again, so we have Dutch and Bern layer. Let me put this to the group, Control Command G, and this will be local Dutch and Bern. As a first, I always do local Dutch and Bern. I'm going to call D and B. Okay. And the same we need for global Dutch and Bern. We need two layers, Bern layer and Dutch layer. I don't want to create this once again. I'm just going to press Ctrl or Command J to duplicate the group, and I'm just going to change the name of the group for global Dutch and Bern, and of course not copy. And the last thing, which is optional, but I'm going to do this on that image, is the hair. I usually do, like, if you feel comfortable enough, you can do this all together as a global Dutch and Bern, but as an optional thing, you can always create another adjustment layers, or actually you can create as many adjustment layers as you actually need, and that's the great thing. So I'm going to copy this once again, and that will be for the hair. So that's our basic adjustments right now, but of course we are not finished yet. There is a few more things to do. of course, you can mix this technique, this method with 50% gray layer. It's nothing wrong about this, and you can try everything you want. But let's go into something more advanced. The problem about Dutch and Bern is, as you can see what Bern does, it's making the image a bit more saturated. So there's few methods to sort this out actually, and I'm going to show you the basic method. And once again, it's not the strict rule, because these values can change actually, but I usually sort it out by hue saturation. And Bern layer usually make the image a bit too saturated, so what I do, I usually take down some of the saturation, not that much really, so it will be more suitable. I think it's usually between 10 and 15. I'm not giving that much actually. And why this is not a strict rule? Many people say about strict values. They can say usually it's between 10, 20 or 10, 15, as I said. But the very important thing is every image is different. And the values you're going to set depends on the image you have. So this image very simple. It's very simple. We have very soft colors, so these values are quite universal for it. But okay, I'm going to clip this hue saturation layer into this Bern layer, so it's going to apply only to this layer, and I'm going to invert this. Control Command I to invert this. And let's go to the Dutch layer. And what is happening here? Of course not that. Have a look. It's losing some saturation. You can notice. So for Dutch layer, we're going to bring up some of the saturation. The value usually is a bit lower. I usually set between 5 or 10 to set this up, and sometimes it's even a bit too strong. So once again, as the previous case, it's not the value that we're going to keep. I'm just going to make them right now to make you see how does it work. So you can actually know what we're going to need for our Dutch and Bern adjustment layers. But what I usually do, sometimes I turn them off during the retouching, and just at the end, I'm trying to adjust the colors. And why? Because let's have a look. I'm going to turn this over here, and as you can see, this area got too saturated, right? And you can actually see what is happening when I apply this hue saturation. It's coming natural, so that's why we're trying to adjust the colors. And I think that was perfect example, because her cheek is super suitable to show you this. Too saturated after burning. After adding this hue saturation, adjustment layer is much better. I think we can add even a bit more than 12. I usually add more for the Bern and less for the Dutch. Sometimes in the Dutch, usually I try to take something. If the skin is darker, it's going to saturate this. So it's not always work that way we want. So that's very important after all Dutch and Bern retouching to check everything if we do right. Okay, I'm going to do the same over here. So these are the values that are not strict, and we're going to change them, but we're going to set them up for now to make this comfortable later for us. The only one difference I do for the hair, I want actually the hair to be saturated. So only one thing I'm going to add this hue saturation adjustment a bit more for the Dutch. So that's the only one difference, and that's how I prepare everything for Dutch and Bern. Other thing is, at the end, I'm not only use hue saturation, but I often can use selective colors or different adjustment layers to sort out the colors. So we're going to take care of this for sure. And also, as a preparation for the retouch, I create this black and white layer on the top. So let me create a new layer above this hair, dodge and burn. Okay, I'm going to call this B and W. Okay, and now edit, fill 50% gray as before, hit OK. So we cannot see anything right now, but we're going to change blending mode into color. And now it's not enough, so I can add some curve adjustment layers to make it a bit darken. So it's going to make this easier for me, and add some contrast. Of course, we can manipulate this anytime. I'm going to change this and make this suitable during retouch to make me see better. I'm going to pull down the darkness sometimes. I'm going to bring up some contrast. So it's just our help layer during we retouch something. It's going to make us see things way better. So around this, for now, it's suitable. I believe, not such a strong contrast, something universal. Hit OK. And that will be Control Command G. And I'm going to call this B and W help. OK. And all of these layers I can close right now, and I'm going to put this into one group, which I'm going to call Dodge and Burn. Control Command G, and going to call this group Dodge and Burn. So that's how I prepare myself to the work for dodging and burning using curve adjustment layers. And now, as I already mentioned before, I'm going to work with local dodge and burn, because I always start with local dodge and burn. It's way easier. So I'm going to remind you what local dodge and burn is if you missed this, but I don't believe it's really possible, because I said that many times already. Local dodge and burn is pixel level dodge and burn, and we're going to work with micro transitions, with all of this little shadows that exist on the face, because of course little spots, little pimples, wrinkles create these little shadows which are responsible for not really such a great looking of the face. So we have to sort it out, all of these micro transitions. How you can recognize these micro transitions, I'm going to show you this once again right now, but I'm going to remind you I already showed this. But I believe some of you maybe could miss the lesson or anything else. And right now, as the visual aid, this black and white help layer is activated, we can see the shadows very clearly. Of course, we could pull even more contrast on this layer so we could see even better, but it's totally enough right now because I can see them very well. So I'm absolutely sure you can see them very well as well. So let's zoom this in, or maybe this distance is quite alright. And why I start from local dodge and burn? Because of course, to build up the contrast, to work with contouring, to work with global dodge and burn, which we call contouring because it's responsible for contours, we have to retouch the face at first, and the proper beauty retouch is actually the local dodge and burn. So once again, as before over here, I can see all of these little shadows that we have to sort out, and here's a lot of them. It's even pointless to check them because there will be a lot of work over here. I can actually see this. As you can see in this area, we have some things that we have to work for sure. Here's a lot, and of course in that area I can see few these not really beauty shadows that we need to sort out. Of course, in this area, just a little bit work, and above I can notice few. Of course, very easy is notice when you get close to the contours, close to the hair, you can see these little shadows. And of course, sometimes we just have different shadows, which are the rest from our basic retouching. So that's the things we have to sort out as well. As you can see, it's really quite much of it. The next area, which is on which it happens very often, let's zoom this a little bit over here. In the area where we have pink cheeks, there's usually a lot of micro transitions. Of course, the reason is I had a lot of spots in that area, some scars, so that's why the reason there is so many micro transitions, and everywhere else I will go, I can see these little spots. Here, I believe there will be a lot of work. It's easy to notice. On the neck will be a little bit less, but once again, when you get close to the edges on the neck, we can notice not such a nice shadows. So these will be the areas we need to work for sure. Let's go up to our face, which is the most important. And of course, I'm going to work all around the lips. I can see there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. A bit bright areas over here, so we need to burn this over here. And as you can see over here, so usually around the lips there's a lot of spots we need to sort out. On the nose, also another area that it's really common to get a lot of micro transitions. And this cheek, it's actually a bit hidden behind the hand, but I can see easily from the distance how much bad areas we have over here. And of course, hand, once again, I can see shadows that needs to be sorted out. And of course, fingers, I'm going to work with them. We don't need to check this, but here's some areas I'd like to improve a little bit to give it actually really amazing look. So simply speaking, it's everywhere. And if you're going to do this right, you can see in the masking that you're doing this right. So I'm going to start right now. I deactivated this help layer on which I wanted to show you what I'm going to do. And the other thing is, remember when I was showing you the gray layer and Dutch and Bern, we were just switching between color black and white to paint. The difference with curve adjustment layer is that I'm not going to switch between black and white color, but I'm just going to work with white color and work on these inverted layer masks. Flow, once again, I keep between 1 or 3%, so it's very low. Of course, it takes long time, but it's worth to keep flow very low. Of course, as a brush, it will be my soft brush, which I made especially for this course. So you can use this through the action, not through the action, but you can use the brush that I already gave you. If you don't have it, of course, I was building this from this hard-edged brush, and as you can see in the sharp dynamic, I have pen pressure and minimum diameter for Dutch and Bern. I usually keep around 50%, it gives really nice softness. Transfer, once again, as a pen pressure and minimum 0% build up and smoothing. So that's my defaults for my brush. So you can have a look once again, how does it looks like. But I'm giving you this brush and we're going to we actually talk about this before a lot, but once again, just for reminding. Small size, I would say 10-50 pixels, sometimes even lower, it depends on the size of the spots you have. And with white color on the Dutch layer, I'm going to brighten up over here. I wouldn't press so strong, that's very important. When I do local Dutch and Bern, I never press too strong, just soft moves. And I find the pressing, when I started, actually, I usually pressed really strong, because I thought I press stronger, it will be better effect. But no, it doesn't look that way, it just makes you stressed out. So usually I really keep this very soft, not pressing that strong, and painting as long or as many times on this area as I need. So here will be a lot of work. I feel this. With different size of the brush, I will be manipulating this. And the thing I mentioned before, when you paint, very often it's good to zoom out to have a look how does it looks like. As you can see, the areas is already changing a bit. Deactivate this black and white layer to have a look how does it looks without this, because it's very easy to do a mistake, and I always reply this. So we have look at this from few different perspectives, from few different angles, from the distance, because it's of course easier to work when we zoom this in, but the result is not always as we really want this. So here I'm going to work way more later. In this area I will be working a lot for sure. This needs to be sorted out. I usually can feel how long I'm going to work, and I can tell you right now that to do really great Dutch and Bern on this image, I feel I'm going to spend easily around 2 hours. That's my feeling, but the reason is I just want to do this right. I could do this way quicker, but I don't feel I need to be in rush. We all have a lot of time. I'm not sure about your time, but of course I won't be talking to you for 2 hours and doing this. I could do this as a bonus lesson if you would like to, so you could see all of the process, but I believe you would die because of the way how much bored you'd be. So as you can see, it's already changing, and the result is really beautiful. As I told you before, it's really difficult to do a mistake because there is a block, there is specific level of the curve we pull up, so it's not really so easy to do any mistakes. If we do just change the color into black one, I feel maybe here it's a little bit too bright, and we can paint with the black color. It seems it wasn't a mistake, but just a white spot. So with white spot, I switch into the Bern layer and paint on this Bern layer a little bit. The truth is, which I probably mentioned, the spots we need to brighten, we don't have so many as the spots. The spots we need to darken, we don't have so many as the spots we need to brighten. So we're not going to work so much with the Bern layer. Usually it's around the lips, if we have the bright spots somewhere, etc. And when we find the bright spots, we use the Bern layer. Also, we use the Bern layer usually after Dutch layer because it's way easier to define the bright spots after we do all of the dodging, and the Bern layer is as a correction. So usually there is much more local dodging than local burning, so don't feel weird if for the most of the time you use this Dutch layer, because it's just natural process. Here I will have some of the burning, and of course in this area I'm going to work a lot. There's a lot of shadows that will be difficult, and I think that's the most important part for my final result. Also, I will do some of the burning over here. Yeah, that's how it looks like. Let's see something from the distance. And we can, of course, mask this layer, press Alt or Option, and hit like this. And that's the areas that we actually paint. And at the end, I'm going to show you this once again, but it's not the rule, but usually the little lines or strokes that we paint create the face shape. So at the end, when you finished your dodging and burning, when you invert this layer, when you mask this layer, you will see the face shape. If you see the face shape, it means you did your dodging and burning right. But as I said, it's not the rule. In most of the cases, it's supposed to look like this, but then it's not a strict rule. But just something helpful to help you know how to define that you do the thing in the right way. So here will be a lot of work. I believe you already know how does it work. And I'm going to speed up this video. I'm going to put a time-lapse from this process. I will be doing dodging and burn, and in the next lesson I'm going to give you just few minutes time-lapse when I'm doing this, because as I said, it's pointless to spend few hours right now, you watching me and listening. I'm not such an interesting person, probably. And here, as you can see, burn a little bit. So that's how I will be working. Remember about the spots, analyze all of the image, and don't worry, I'm not leaving you, of course, because after all, we're going to talk about this. You're going to see all of the masks, how they looks like, and of course I'm going to cut some of the specific points. I'm going to talk about them, so you get in complete knowledge about local touch and burning, and of course later as a local and global touch and burn, and all of the aspects of dodging and burning. Here around the eye, as you can see, I will have a lot of work to do, but it's not so complicated. I really love the process. It takes a lot of time. If you feel tired, you can do a break every 1 hour, every half an hour, even sometimes, because I understand I'm getting tired. Even during this retouch, I probably will do one break. Breaks are very important. And why? Because often when we're retouching, our eyes are getting tired, and later it's difficult to define what is right, what's to remove, what's to retouch, and it's even more difficult to distinguish the colors. So that's why breaks are very important. Give some rest for your eyes. Retouching, it's not such an easy work as some people might think. It's very exhausting work for the eyes, so such a things, you should keep this in mind. And feel tired, just take a break. So right now I'm going to speed up this video. You can watch this in the next lesson how I work, and we're going to talk after the next lesson about this retouching I'm doing right now.